When I want something badly enough, like it's totally essential to my needs, I realize I'm willing to tolerate just about anything. Think about it. As demand for something goes up, so does our tolerance for pain. Unfortunately, this can also mean the more desperate we are for something, the more tolerant of mediocrity we become. Not the ideal relationship, I know, but it's something we're all familiar with. I believe the biggest problem here lies with businesses, products, or services that are aware of their importance but don't put much effort into providing a satisfactory experience. This allows them to exploit people by delivering a mediocre experience that users tolerate due to the significance of the service or lack of a viable alternative. For example, after moving into a new home, think about that moment of having to sign up for a new internet service provider. That was a fantastic, painless experience that satisfied all my needs and honestly took no time at all. Said no one ever. Because internet is so essential, we'll tolerate any level of subpar experience in order to get it. I love Gmail, but when you're writing a message and need to attach a photo to the message, it drops the photo wherever it wants, typically right in the middle of the paragraph I'm writing, and displays that photo for some reason in line with the text and scales it up to the size of a dinner plate. But Gmail is a great email client, so we tolerate some of the poor experience. Or what about the stability of nonlinear editors? Some NLEs are notorious for crashing, but because it's the one you learned on, you edit, you crash, you lose your work, you kick something, and then you reopen and do it again. All because we developed a high pain tolerance for essential tools, even when they fail us. Now, this type of thinking has no place in the creative process, yet creatives routinely have to make compromises. We should be raising the bar of expectations for the technology we depend on, not lowering it. Creatives are supposed to be picky and fight for the smallest insignificant details, sometimes because they can be seen, other times because they can be felt. Like many of you, I'm always trying to make my projects look and sound better, and I'm constantly on the search for new tools that will actually help raise expectations and improve the control and the quality of my work. Some of you have asked over the past months, who writes and shoots these Strada stories? Well, the short answer is me. Since we started really small, storytelling fell on my shoulders, but as our business grows, we hope our content team will grow with it. But part of my passion for workflow comes from writing these scripts, setting up the lights, operating the camera, the prompter, and sitting in the edit chair. The truth is, creating different forms of art are what fuel virtually every aspect of my life. I play 9 musical instruments, and I write and record my own music that I publish on Spotify and iTunes. I've even written and recorded the music to scores and films and videos. I mention this for 2 reasons. First, I don't want to work at a job in art and tech only to serve the creative community. I'm a user of the same tools, and just like you, I want to push them all the way to their limits. And second, a wide array of creative outlets has given me more exposure to production and post-production video and audio workflow tools. And every time I run into a part of the process that impacts my efficiency, I don't want to raise my tolerance for pain. I want to discover a way to eliminate it. And if a better way doesn't exist, maybe I can help invent it. And that's why I set out to build Strada, to use the cloud and machine learning to help up-level my work by using the newest tools and workflows to improve creative control. And if Strada doesn't do that for me, I'm not going to push it on anyone else. And that's why for the next few months, we're dead set on building an alpha version of the Strada platform to prove that out. Now, with all that being said, when it comes to editing this series, I'm experiencing something exciting and new that I've never experienced before. I'm using AI to make these episodes. I'm not using AI to generate the series. I'm real. This is real. Rather, I'm starting to use AI tools to help improve the workflow and the quality of the video and the audio. So I want to show you a little bit about how I'm making this series and where I've introduced new AI tools, where they're helping me, where the problems are, and where Strada will someday hopefully solve them. I write the series in a product called Notion. Notion is a cloud-based task management tool that performs numerous functions, including project tracking, calendar management, wikis, and timelines. Notion is one of those tools that's so versatile, it's replaced several other tools that we used to need in our previous jobs. Notion literally saves us time and money. Within Notion, there's also a little AI assistant that I can use to ask for help with various tasks, such as spelling, organization, and phrasing. The AI assistant learns my behavior ears and assists me in improving my writing. I turned my home office into a little studio. I used to light myself with this cheap little LED strip that I tolerated, but now my images are much better thanks to lights made by Cream Source. I have the Vortex 6 as my key, the 4 for a little light on the background, and then I tune the micro to match the warmth of my background lights and hang it above my shoulders as a little top light. I use the dome diffuser to soften it a bit and give a little light wrap. Here's the LED strip, and here's Cream Source. I originally shot the Strada Startup series on my Red 8K Helium, but for this Alpha series, I've upgraded to the Panavision DXL2, and I'm shooting with the Panaspeed 1.4s. Hopefully you can tell. We'll come back to that in the future. I set up my prompter, connect my Teradek Serve 4K to the cloud, and begin shooting the episode. All of this I do totally by myself. For editing, I can edit in almost any NLE, but I chose Final Cut Pro because I'm on such a short turnaround with these episodes. I need an editor that has the lowest click ratio. And I find track-based NLEs on average are more popular and familiar, but track-based editors require about 30% more clicks per task than trackless editors like Final Cut. This isn't a commentary on the features within NLEs, since they all generally meet the needs of any type of project. But when speed is a significant factor, as it is in my case, Final Cut always wins that race. Now, up to this point, most of this stuff is fairly routine, but this is where my new workflow is starting to change. Because we're shooting behind the scenes, there's a lot of elements in the show, like old photos, documents, screen recordings, and even iPhone footage. When you cut together some of these old elements against top-of-the-line Red 8K sensors, let's just say there's a notable difference. So how can we help improve the quality? Well, way back in episode 2, I wanted to explain a little bit about my career, where I started and how I ended up here. And since that was going to include a lot of photos that were anything but a 16:9 aspect ratio, I thought, what if I generated custom picture frames to put the photos in, which could also help motivate the story by stylizing the frame to match the era in which the original photos were taken. Then as the story moves up to more modern times, the picture frames and locations would appear more modern. So I used Midjourney to generate picture frames and authored the prompts to describe the aspect ratio, physical location, and style of the frame. I also made sure the photos inside the AI-generated frames were white, which will make sense in a minute. But I also wanted to improve the quality of these photos since I'm doing this series in 4K, and I admit many of these photos aren't that high res. So I went to an AI tool I really love called Remini AI. Remini does a fantastic job of taking old photos and rebuilding them to higher resolutions. It's especially good at dealing with blurred or soft images and rebuilds eyes and hair really well, which is critical in a photo. From there, some of the original framing of the image wasn't ideal. So I used Photoshop's new AI engine to do what's known as outpainting. Outpainting allows me to reframe an image and generate new realistic textures that go beyond the original photo, so you don't have to settle for bad framing or worse, crop. I then loaded the updated photos into Final Cut in the foreground, then used a mask to cut out the frame so I could place in the AI enhanced photo. Since I instructed Midjourney to generate a white photo within the frame, I used the composite mode Multiply so I can keep the realistic reflections of the glass and shadows from the frame that make the new comp more realistic with virtually no effort. Then I used the Final Cut tracker and set that to machine learning, because if you haven't noticed, Apple never uses the term AI, and track that onto a slow push-in all in 4K to create the end result. So right there, with Midjourney, Remini, Photoshop, and the Final Cut ML tracker, we just used 4 AI tools to create something in my mind I couldn't have done even 6 months ago. And I'll be honest, I got this to look exactly the way I visualized it in my mind. But we could take it a step further. Again, back in episode 2, our friend Nick Bashiri came in to help us with the pitch deck. At the time, to record our meetings, we just set up an iPhone 14 on the ultra-wide 13mm lens and shot a static video. I know, it's low budget. But as Nick makes a strong point, we wanted to punch in, and even though this is a 4K H.265 recording, as you expect, it's an iPhone, so it falls apart pretty badly. Back then, there wasn't really a lot we could do. But remember that tool Remini? Well, things are moving in the AI space so fast that a few weeks ago, Remini added a video upgrade that includes AI video restoration to their tool. So I took the exact same output used in episode 2, including the embedded cuts, uploaded it to Remini as an H.265 for the first time, and here's the result. Remini gave me back a file that I would say the quality is easily a 50% improvement. Then back in Final Cut, I added Neat Video, which I find to be the best noise reducing tool in the world, and then layer in the new version atop the original, setting the opacity to 80%. And here's the result. First the original, then the Remini AI reconstruct, and then the neat video noise reduction composited layer. Side by side, you can see where we started and where we ended up with AI as an incredible improvement. And I think the use case for this is truly limitless. This is a new paradigm for me, and it's going to unlock a new world for everyone in the creative process. Using AI to solve problems like the ones I just demonstrated is the biggest change for the creative process since the introduction of the digital sensor. We're at the very beginning of improving our work, so maybe eventually you won't have to ever tolerate any qualitative limitations to your sound and picture. But there are a few problems with everything I just showed. Did you catch any of them? There's two big ones. The still and video results I got were marked improvements, but the first problem in this process required 4 different tools to get there. On my computer, I now have 4 versions of intermediate results that I have to track, name, and save, not to mention I can't batch process this at all. That's not a workflow, that's a mess. And how would I have known Remini added video to their AI stills tool? Wouldn't it be great if all these steps were able to be combined into one task that an editor could drive by themselves in one click? As the world of AI models expands, more and more things that you want to do will become possible. That's good for creative control. But at the same time, that expansion means tools and tasks will become more fragmented. That's bad for creative control. And we think that's a problem we're solving. And as I sit here and create these episodes, our team are building ways to solve this problem literally in the next room. In the past, when a director sees a soft shot or needs to work with archive footage, they're used to saying, is there anything we can do to clean that up? In the future, if we're successful, Strada will be the creative companion where you can instantly search for AI models based on any need and turn them into your own custom workflows, which will speed up your process and most importantly, reduce the need to tolerate undesirable results. Now, I said there were 2 problems. Did you catch the second? It's a lot more important to creative people and a lot harder to solve. For years, we've been conforming our vision to fit the technology. I wonder if it's finally time to conform the technology to fit our vision. But that would be a matter of taste.